What's up, people? Today's question is serious. What's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you? A robber got into my house when I was about 8. Luckily, my dog noticed and bit the guy's leg and wouldn't let go. My dad heard the commotion and ran downstairs to see the robber trying to go back over the fence. With my dog still attached to their leg, my dad had to pull my dog off this guy's leg because she wouldn't let go. Police were called, but the guy was long gone. Doggy is still alive to this day. Story 3. A friend of mine was drinking and decided to pull out a revolver while we were sitting around talking. He unloaded the gun, but in a drunk stupor, he decided to replace one bullet and play Russian roulette. While trying to take the gun from him, he points it toward the ground, says, "It's not loaded," and pulls the trigger, hitting me in my left leg. Blood was everywhere, but luckily we were only 1 block from the hospital, and I immediately rushed out and flew straight there. They believed I was going to lose my knee, but after a second opinion and a transfer to a better hospital, there was minimal damage after surgery, and after a couple months of recovery, I retained 100% use of my leg, thanks to the Lord above. I never talked or hung out with him again. Never hang out with drunk idiots or idiots in general. Stupidity and guns don't mix. Story 4. Losing 3L of blood. I was on the way to the hospital for a routine checkup when I was 33 weeks pregnant. I wasn't feeling too well, so I left a bit earlier. At the lights, I suddenly gushed out all this blood. It was like a bucket pouring out blood. The husband ran the red light and got us to the hospital. The baby's heart rate was very low, and within 20 minutes, they got her out via emergency C-section. She survived, and they told me I had a total placenta abruption. Had we been at home, we would have both died. I had such an adrenaline rush that it took me days to actually realize how close to death we were. That was a year ago, and my daughter is doing well. Story 5. When I was a kid, I was mucking about with a friend of mine. We were standing on an old, disused railway bridge, which had one hell of a drop to the road below. We should not have been up there, as there were no railings. But kids will be kids. My friend decided to scare me by pushing me and then grabbing my coat and pulling me back. But for that second, my center of gravity was over, and I was going to fall had he not pulled on me. For that split second, I knew I was going to die. I was very pissed off at him. Story 6. I knocked over a propane tank in the garage. I cracked the neck, and it started off gassing. It was between me and the door into the house. The garage door was closed. I cleared the door about a half second before it ignited from the gas water heater's pilot light. I lost all the hair on my face and got a burn on the hand I used to pull myself through the door. The house was a total loss, but we all got out okay. Story 7. When I was 7, I was playing in my grandpa's front yard. A random car pulled up beside me, and a young lady with an older man pulled out a rabbit in a cage, and she said, "Hey, you want to pet my cute rabbit?" Being the foolish and naive youth that I was, I approached the car, and I was within arm's reach of the lady when my grandma came running out screaming at me. I don't remember what she said, but I had never heard anything like that before. The car then sped off, and my grandma ripped me from the pavement and took me inside. I'm so grateful she was there, and I always think about how different my life would have been had she been a couple seconds later. Story 8. I was walking on the sidewalk near a freeway overpass when I heard an enormous crash. A man, a 15-foot piece of guardrail, and a V8 motor came flying down from the freeway. I literally jumped out of the way as it landed on the spot I was just walking on. The guardrail made a huge hole in the sidewalk. I would have been squashed. The man was twisted in every direction. His body was ripped apart. Apparently, he hit the guardrail in his car with such force that the motor was ripped from the motor mounts, and he flew through the windshield. It was right across from a fire station, but the guy was dead. I just walked away, but it's always been a terrible memory. Story 9. Overdosing on a cocktail of stimulants while taking a shower. I fell to the bottom of the tub as time felt like it had stopped completely. I felt like my consciousness was glitching, much like a VHS tape on pause. I could see myself falling over and over in repeat for what seemed like hours. It's really difficult to describe the experience, but it was insanely terrifying. However, I was completely lucid simultaneously, and all I could think of was how regretful I was that I had caused my own death and how much I was going to miss my family. There was so much more I wanted to experience in life. I finally regained control of my body and crawled out of the tub covered in vomit. I spent the rest of the night on the bathroom floor, sobbing in gratitude. Stay away from that shit, yo. Story 10. A man decided to try to run me off the road in his car. I had a very slow car at the time, and my phone was dead, so I couldn't call 911. So I drove into a fast food parking lot and ran inside. It was nighttime, so not much was open. The guy parked his car right outside the door and next to my car, but he didn't come in. I asked to use a phone to call 911. No one wanted to let me. Eventually, a worker let me use theirs, and the 911 operator tried to gaslight me, asking why I would think someone was chasing me, but they said an officer would be around when they could. At this point, I'm crying and panicked. This massive man and his wife roll up and come in. The wife sees me crying and freaking out and asks what's wrong. I explain. The husband goes outside and confronts the man parked in his car. The wife stays with me. My husband came back in and said the driver said I threw a water balloon at his car when I passed him. I have no idea where that excuse came from. My POS car at the time had windows that couldn't even roll down. Anyway, the husband goes back out and yells at the name to get lost. He does. I thank the nice people and go home. The scariest part for me was the lack of compassion from the general public. I don't look crazy. I was clearly terrified. No one would even let me use a phone. The company phone was even on the wall behind the counter. I don't know who that couple was, but I'm so thankful for them. Story 11. My first year at a small but well-known college for the arts. Think of the movie Fame. There's always someone singing or playing music, laughing, talking, etc. I walk out of the bathroom and no one is in the hallway. There was not a single sound on the entire floor. I walk around the hallway for a bit and can't find anyone. Cell phone service is shit inside the building and I have no signal. Eventually, I take a look at our electronic notice board to see a bright red screen with big black letters. Active shooter in building. I froze. I had never done an active shooter drill before and didn't know what to do. A lot of the doors automatically lock, and I wasn't able to enter any of the rooms to hide. I wasn't sure if I could make it to the stairwell to escape the building, and I wasn't sure where anyone was, including this shooter. I ended up stuffing myself in an open locker and holding my breath for what felt like hours. It turns out the security team at school made a big mistake and shared the active shooter warning by accident. There was no shooter, and it wasn't even a drill. Just a complete mistake. Thinking about it now makes me wonder what I would do in a similar situation, as mass shootings happen often in the US. I'm just grateful it was a mistake and not real. Story 12. My very drunk, abusive boyfriend got me out of bed late one night, and he made me sit across from him on the kitchen floor. He had placed all of his guns in between us, and they were all pointed at me. He started questioning me if I was cheating on him, and he wouldn't believe anything I'd say. He'd periodically pick up a random gun and taunt me with it, making sure that it was still pointed in my direction. Honestly, I don't know how I convinced him enough to stop, and I don't know how I made it out alive. He was extremely drunk and angry enough that anything could have happened. Later that night, after he passed out, he got a text from a coworker confirming their hotel room for the next night. So someone was cheating in the relationship, and it wasn't me. Well, people, so much for today's last story. Remember that you can write me some of your funniest stories in the comments. I'm collecting the best ones to make a video with your best stories.